Hi there, welcome to my weekly Fundemental video. Hope you enjoy. So yeah, we're gonna start off in our usual way. We've got no preamble this week. I was doing a study on the on German unemployment and just general European unemployment, and yeah, like yesterday, but I haven't quite finished that. So that I might do a video on that later in the week, but we're just going to get straight to it this week and look at the difference between the assets that I study and as well as looking at the news, and then we're going to look into next week as well. So we're going to do it like that. Well, I'm going to start off by looking at the S&P 500 and UK 100. And this is how we moved through the week. We use I use Friday, like previous Friday to last, so this was the Friday just gone, it's Friday previous to this, as a benchmark, so we can see how we moved through the week relative to the end of last week, or just relative to something anyway. And as you can see, we ended on the 27th of November at minus 50. We then had the UK 100 rallying stronger than the S&P 500. That means that in percentage terms, the UK 100 is increasing more than the S&P 500. And as you can see, we've got this. This is Monday, so we opened the UK opened high and finished the day higher than the S&P 500, and that continued into Tuesday. Big rally, and UK 100 moved much more than the S&P 500 through Tuesday, Wednesday. Up here and bang, straight down. Look at that. This is really steep. Imagine if a bicycle was on this, it would be zooming down. This would be quite a hard cycle up. This would be a very difficult cycle up, but you'd fly down the other side. And yeah, so yeah, this was obviously the big news at the end of the week. This is Thursday, this is Friday. Big news that drove this UK 100 down more than the S&P 500 down. So quite an interesting, quite a switching week on the UK S&P 500 difference. So we're going to look at that in a second. But let's first take a look at the JER 30 and S&P 500. So we've got the JER 30 versus S&P 500. As you can see, the same Friday, the 27th of the 11th, 27th of November. The JER started the week above the S&P 500, about 210, 205. And then saw the rally, the JER rally stronger on Monday than the S&P 500, as you can see by this high. Look at this. Then look at this, all the way down. We had quite a mountain shape actually, but we fell. The JER 30 fell more than the S&P 500 on Tuesday. Rallied a bit more than the S&P 500, or it fell less. Yeah, the JER fell less than the S&P 500 actually on the Wednesday. But we'll take a look at that to make that clarify that. But then yeah, as you can see, once again, like the UK 100, big sharp sell-off on the JER relative to the S&P 500. The JER fell a lot quicker than the S&P 500, as you can see. Yeah, so let's take a look at what could have driven these facts. So we're going to take a look at last week's fundamental news and everything. So let's just pop that up. Yeah. So we're going to start on Monday, and we're going to start in the UK, or in Britain, United Kingdom, GB. So this is UK 100 daily. And this is Monday. This is Monday's bar. Bit of an indecision bar, especially as well as the Friday was a bit indecisive as well. Similar bar, showing a bit of indecision. But what was the fundamentals behind this kind of indecisive bar? Well, we had mortgage data, and it was mortgage lending data. It showed that mortgage lending was at 3.6 billion. Just higher than expectations, which were at 3.45 billion, and the same figure as a month earlier. So for both November and October, October and November, there was a lending of 3.6 billion. So there's no change there, but it'd be expectations in November. So expectations have been 3.45 and 3.6 billion. Now, this is not a major market moving event. It does move markets, but it doesn't move them like for days and days and days, unless they're really big, or really beat expectations, or predominantly really miss. and if they're in focus as well, that's a big one. But if we look on the hour, we can see that it did actually move markets. So yes, let's go take a look on Monday. Where's Monday? Monday the 30th. Yeah. And we're looking here. The release was at 9:30. It's 9 o'clock bar. Okay, it's a nice little doji rally up. That's a really good entry signal overall, because we had good data, a doji, and then a rally. I mean, this rallied on the news and then it came back down, but then we saw it continue rallying up. This would be, if you're a short-term trader on the hourly, should have been a good trade up until lunch. You could have gone for lunch at 1. It would have been quite nice. Could have had lion, woke up about 7, had lunch at 1. Very nice. Yeah, that's quite really nice price action on the back of a strong and correct trade, because you've got the UK mortgage data leading into that. Yeah, that was all good. That was predominantly the Monday. But as you can see, we came back down. This is where we opened on the Monday here. So we went like this. We kind of moved sideways, even though if we look at the daily again, this is kind of a red down. That's just because simply we've been moving sideways, and the way the open was, if you find it again, we opened up here, and then we finished down there, but it's just sideways action. If we include Friday, you can see we're just moving sideways kind of thing. It's just a bit of ranging play, and this really reinforced the range. It's a good trade. Anyway, yeah, that kind of covers England on the Monday. So we're going to look at we're going to go over to Europe. We're just going to go across the channel and take a look at Germany and Europe in general. We're looking at inflation. So yeah, this is a GER30 daily chart, and this is Monday here. This bar here. One of the few positive days this week. As you can see, this big sell. We will discuss what happened here. Big bar, and a positive bar here as well. But yeah, Monday. What happened on Monday? Well, we had German inflation come out at 0.4% compared to expectations of 0.3%. This positive news sent the GER30 higher. This push higher was arguably compounded by the expectations of the ECB. Okay, so yeah, basically the inflation pushed it higher. It's good data on the economy. Inflation basically just shows how much action there is in the economy, and basically 0.4 shows more action than expected 0.3. So good stuff. And this was also compounded by the ECB meeting. Remember, we hadn't got to Thursday at this point. We didn't know what was going to happen. So arguably, traders had still been pricing in more action. So to show that, let's just take a look at the euro dollar. And I'll just put that up. As you can see, Monday, investors, this also fell. You know, they could have been falling for other reasons and everything, but you know, it's not too much of an assumption to say both the euro was pushed lower and the DAX was pushed higher by ECB expectations. So arguably, German inflation definitely want to take a look at, but maybe not the main driver behind the day. Yeah, and this was a broad base. The euro fell against most of its peers. If I just get up for you, just DFT. If I get up for you another euro dominated comments, yes, get up the euro, yeah. Yeah. As you can see, there wasn't such shorting, but it's still the last day that the euro fell against the yen. If you're into a long position here, this would have been astounding. It's actually got the price action for it as well, really. But yeah, see, it's the last day. Even though it's slightly representing indecision, there were still people shorting the euro, but based on expectations for the ECB. So yeah, that was Monday, and that's broadly why we had the move close together. Because if we take a look at the S&P 500 now, although there wasn't any real big news. We'll just take a look at the price action on the S&P 500. And this is Monday. As you can see, it's slightly sold off. Small move, but yeah, UK 100. If you go back on the daily, moves small amount. So moves slightly more though. If you go on the J30 daily, push up. See, we said we moved apart. So let's look at the difference. Just remember those bars. J up. UK 100 slightly down. And S&P 500 slightly down. So as you can see, the UK 100 fell in our difference wise, slightly more than the S&P 500, but not that much. There was only about a 10 change in difference, from about -50 to about -40. So the S&P 500 fell more than the UK 100, but only slightly, only a jar. But obviously the J30 rose and the S&P 500 fell. As you can see, big move up, making a big difference. This is a perfect short, and we did go in for a short here. Yeah, it was a good trade actually, especially with what happened later in the week. Yeah, it was good. It was solid. Yeah, so let's look at Tuesday. Yeah, so with all the central bank activity, well, Europe central bank activity, a lot of Western focus this week. China wasn't really in the news, so I thought I'll add it into my news. So yeah, this is just the USD to the CNH daily chart. We're talking about Tuesday, so we're talking about this bar, this big down bar. So this shows this CHN and the Chinese currency strengthening. What caused this? Well, it's important to note first, however, that the Chinese currency was added to the IMF reserves currency on Monday. This gives it a green light to the country's economic liberalisation and arguably shows the IMF as supporting the Chinese expansion in world affairs. So the adding just shows that of the Chinese currency to the IMF reserve currency shows, yeah, China's becoming a big player. It's seeking probably to try and rival the US as a world player. Won't go into the kind of judgment of this, but you know, yeah. Yes, we'll leave that one for another time. So yeah, what happened on Tuesday? What caused this upward bar? Well, we had PMIs from the manufacturing sector for both the NBS and CACSIN. NBS PMIs were lower than expected at 49.6. Expectations had put it at 49.8, with CACSIN at 48.6. Expectations were for 48, demonstrating a beat. And yeah, 50 marks the point of expansion. Yeah, so arguably investors took this as positive. Recently, a lot of bad news out of China. As you can see here, a lot of bad news. Yeah, PMIs had their low in September. They were really low, like 50 years expansion, and they were like 40 or something. So they were proper bad. Yeah, and you know, got this strengthening bar. Maybe arguably investors counted this towards actions from the Chinese central bank. They're doing less actions. Maybe this is why it's quite strong. But the currency moves quite a lot. It's quite volatile. But you know, this is quite a strong bar, even so. But obviously that didn't hold any ground. It just came back again. And then this Wednesday is that Wednesday? Yeah, that's Wednesday. Quite quiet. Thursday, bang bang. So look at this, it's very strange. If we look at the weekly, look at that, it's a little doji. So that's very interesting. Near this top over here, it's a bit lower than that top. If it was a bit higher, that would be like a double top with two dojis. That would be a short can be sign, you know. But yeah, interesting stuff. I thought I'd focus on that. So arguably Chinese economy getting a bit better, but it's not being able to push through. People are probably still a bit jittery about it, a bit nervous, so they're not willing to buy the CHN because of, this Chinese bank are very active, and to play against them is it's a bit of a fool thing to do. So yeah, that was China on Tuesday. So we're going to go back to Europe, and we are going to look at the unemployment rate for Europe. This was one of the reasons why I was doing my research into European unemployment, but unfortunately that wasn't finished. I was doing it until about, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning. I just fell asleep. But yeah, so we're looking at unemployment on Tuesday. And the figure came out at 10.7% compared to expected 10.8. This is Eurostoxx 50 daily. And look at this, because of the better than expected release, it's better by 0.1%. So 0.1% more people were employed than expected. We had a sell-off. Now, what this could have been is a good catapult for renting and trade. I did a post to expect this extent, like to use these as catapults. These little data points before the EU. It's ECB, announcement, and yeah, it would have been perfect. And we got that in. That came down, as you can see, and we didn't stop falling. So yeah, you would usually argue better than employment should push it up, but obviously with monetary policy being the way it is, with QE, bad data is good data and good data is bad data. So people, investors, priced in lower action from the ECB, and we had quite a strong down day. As you can see, it opened quite high, so there wasn't actually much change overall on the day, but from the start of the day to the end of the day, quite big. Yeah, and that was that. So we'll go back over to America now. Let's see what the states were doing on the Tuesday. And we're looking here. It's the first day of the month. So the consumer in America continue to keep the economy alive, with the Red Book showing solid growth of retail sales of 1.6% month on month, up from the previous month, which was 0.9%. And as you can see, the day ended higher. This bar here, but it's over high. But you see the actual reaction by an hour by hour basis. We're looking at Tuesday, so we're looking at the first. This was released at 1:55 there on this 2 o'clock bar. Look how strong that is on the back of the Red Book. Very strong up. Good bar. Very nice. It was then the case that we had the ISM manufacturing PMI at 48.6 compared to expected 50.1, causing a sell-off. However, came back arguably. If we look at this, where's 1 o'clock? 3 o'clock. There. So it just sold off on the worse than expected ISM manufacturing. It came out at 58.6, which shows contraction. 50.1 shows expansion. So investors had expected the manufacturing sector to show expansion, but then it showed retractment. But this came back quite strongly. As you can see, you couldn't hold those lows. And arguably, it's because the thing in manufacturing is it's a bit of a dying business in a lot of Western kind of countries, such as America, such as the UK as well. So I think, in my personal view, if it's better than expected, it causes much more of a drive than if it's worse than expected, because there's this sentiment that it's going, it's pretty much gone, manufacturing in these countries. So it couldn't really hold its ground for that reason, and we saw it pull back up here, and we actually finished the day higher. People more focused on the consumer, in my opinion. Red Book, consumer was good, showing consumer good, and we got higher. So Yeah, and we also had quite big news on Wednesday from the UK. Didn't really move markets as such, but it's quite important because there's quite a important political aspect that could, and this was Britain's vote to bomb Syria. The vote was important for two main reasons. One was that simply it was a vote on the act of war, with this having international reverberations. It has often been the case that the UK has been withdrawing from world affairs, for instance the potential for a Brexit combined with the isolationist party of UKIP. So Britain has been accused of recent time pulling back out of world affairs and everything. This is quite a big theme within the debate. Another example of the UK pulling out of international affairs is the fact that they no longer commit. Originally they weren't committing to spending 2% of government spending on defence, which is NATO's required rules. So we were kind of putting them back, but yeah, not anymore. We're getting involved. They're going to bomb them. We are spending 2%. I think, we've raised that back up with putting money into MI5, the SAS, whatnot, just general defence. So that's gone back up to 2%, and we are bombing Syria. So so that was a key thing: the lack of that we're not really a world player, and that we need to bomb Syria to prove that we're a world player. A strange kind of paradigm, you could argue, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, if they think bombing helps, then arguably bombing helps. But yeah, and second, and this is for internal politics and everything, and for the stability of the government, this was more of a key one. That could move markets more than just simply the bombing of Syria. And that was a threat to both the stability of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. For the Conservatives, this was a threat of a bill being defeated, which would have made it the second time that bills over the involvement in Syria would be defeated, as well as making it the second bill in recent history that was defeated, with the first being UK tax credits. If the bill had been defeated, this would have seriously weakened the current Conservative government, who have only been in office 7 months. So yeah, the current Conservative government bills keep getting defeated, and that's not meant to happen in UK politics. The whole system is designed to make strong governments which can just pass legislation pretty much at their will. It's their country. They rule for 5 years, and then the electorate decides on their 5-year tenure if they want to stay or if they want someone else. That's how British democracy works. But the Conservatives had this threat that the Labour Party were going to do a whipped vote, which means that all the Labour Party members would have had to vote against the bill, and then some Conservatives could have dissented against their own government, which would have knocked down the bill. And after the tax credits bill was defeated in the Lords, and the Conservatives had a vote over Syria before, which was defeated, it would have looked weak. They've only been in for 7 months, and they only have a small majority. It could have really put them on the back foot, so to speak. They would have really been struggling. But the Conservative government were throwing a helping hand from Labour Party. It had originally been the case that the politicians of the Labour Party would have been whipped. So basically, originally, Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, would have effectively forced the Labour Party to vote against the bill. However, Jeremy Corbyn's cabinet could not reach a decision on whether to support the bill or go against the bill. This meant there was a free vote. So basically, the cabinet, then the shadow cabinet, so the shadow government, could not decide whether to go against the bill or go with it. They couldn't make a unanimous decision, making it so there was a free vote against, free vote for or against the bill. And the thing is, the reason there was a free vote was because if Jeremy Corbyn had then gone on to make it a whip vote, whereby you have to vote for the party, you could have seen quite a few Labour dissenters, a lot of rebels, and these dissenters would have effectively had to get kicked out of the party. There probably would have been quite a few of them as well. So yeah, that could have been the end of the Labour Party as well. So we had two threats to the parties. Both of them came off quite well, consideringly. So it's quite an interesting one. So something to watch. The British governments are meant to be very stable. At the moment, they're not at all. They're quite unstable. They're quite instability. There's quite a lot of instability. So yeah, one to watch. But yeah, I mean, that was Wednesday, as you can see. Sold off on Wednesday. Yeah, I think that was Wednesday. Yeah. So 1 second. Yeah. So we had so Tuesday, Wednesday. So yes, look how that affected the difference. So I forgot to say we did just did Tuesday and Wednesday together. But as you can see, just so we can get them out, so we can focus on this. But as you can see, the S&P 500, UK 100, Tuesday, Wednesday, UK 100 got further above the S&P 500, and the JR30 got closer on the Tuesday and then further away on the Wednesday. Between Tuesday and Wednesday wasn't much move. Well, it's quite a big move. So yeah, that's that. Now let's go look at the end of the week. This is this bit. This is the real important bit. As you can see, these big sell-offs, big stuff. So let's take a look. So yeah, this is the DAX, the JR30 daily, and we're looking at this bar Thursday. It's big sell-off. It's exciting stuff. Yeah, so pretty much markets had been pricing in large action from the ECB. If we look at the time when they provocation, so this is the time that yeah, they said they might act. They're going to do more. Look at this. It's a big move up here. This is a big move. You know? Yeah. This is even more shown on the euro dollar. So where do they? November. Yeah, they provocated on November the 18th. Why can't I find it? Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so that was my confusing. It was actually on the 18th was a non-monetary policy meeting. The monetary policy meeting, just to clarify, was on the 22nd of October, so it's this bar. That's why I was getting confused. And as you can see, look how much expectations they had been pricing in, all the way down here. This is a really big move. From above, this is 113. We got it all the way down to just above 105. Big move, big move. That makes a difference if you're going on holiday. Even if you're just going on holiday, let alone just trading it, just short position. That makes a difference. If we're looking at the DAX, because obviously I got a bit confused, and I do apologise for that. The sincerest apologies. It was here that we had a rally. I was a bit confused. So as you can see, yeah, once again big. These are Bollinger Bands, and we moved from just underneath average price is 75 mean to 2 standard deviations. And then back, look at that, came to just above average. So yeah, big moves. In short, what caused this massive sell-off, and on the euro dollar, this massive strengthening up here? Well, in short, the ECB failed to meet expectations. More in depth, however, there were 3 expectations that were met by the ECB. These were the cutting of the deposit facility rate. So the deposit facility rate is basically like the bank accounts, the bank accounts of banks. So if I'm like Deutsche Bank, I might want to put money in the ECB to keep it safe and everything if I'm not doing anything. But if I want to do that, instead of paying minus 0.2%, so instead of paying 0.2% per the monies I put in there, I now have to pay 0.3%. So that was cut from minus 0.2 to minus 0.3. And we had the extension of QE program, which was extended to March 2017. Originally it had been timetabled to end on September 2016. And we had the introduction of buying of regional debt, such as Paris debt, Milan's debt, these kind of city states, like buying on these debts. But you know what? We still these moves. These are 3 big expectations that will match. But look at that, bang! Still went against it, and that's due to, despite these expected measures being met, it can be seen that there was a major miss on one of the key expectations. This was that investors believed the ECB would raise QE. This expectation that the ECB would buy more debt was given height when the ECB cut its deposit facility. So the ECB has a rule whereby it can't buy bonds that are valued, that give a yield less than the deposit facility. So deposit facility, as discussed earlier, was minus 0.2 previous to this Thursday. So the ECB could only buy debt that was worth more than, that would pay more than 0.2%, minus 0.2%. Then once, because obviously the deposit facility data comes out before the meeting, it went down to minus 0.3%. So investors really start ramping up ideas maybe, and the minus 0.3% was highly expected. It was 100% expectation rate. Markets had priced in 100% chance that they would cut it to 0.3%. So basically everyone was expecting that they'd buy more debt, really, and they didn't. And simple. And they're just buying the same debt, buying more different debt, doing it longer, but they're not buying anymore. And that was the key miss, which sent this higher. It's also the case that Mario Draghi tends to beat market expectations. So where the market was pricing a 100% chance of a fall of the deposit facility rate to minus 0.3, markets may be expected actually that it'll go to 0.4 or even 0.5, and maybe instead of extending it to March 2017, they would have extended it to September 17, and buying bonds. That was the main one. That was the big miss. They should have. The markets thought they should have bought more bonds, and we had these bit of a tantrum. Big one. Look at that. Look at that big up, and then that really shows you what happens when expectation miss. I was of the view that they would miss expectations. I said in my last video, and we played this very well, quite nicely in my opinion. Just snapped like 3% of the account balance off it, so that was all good. It was a classic example as well. This is a classic example of buy the news, sell the rumour. If you've ever heard this phrase and wonder what it meant, but on the euro dollar it would be sell the news, buy the rumour. Sell the rumour, buy the news. So as you can see, the rumour is that they're going to do more quantitative easing up here. So you sell that rumour as it gets priced in. But when the news actually comes, you want to buy it. Because people like to spread rumours, and then it just keeps going, and it gets bigger and bigger. It's like Chinese whispers. Once people just keep editing it, and it gets big, and then you end up with just some wild kind of statement that represents no original statement. And then when it comes out, bang, you pay for it. So that's that. And we had a bit of an interesting one. Like what happened earlier in the video, the FT just seemed to pop up out of nowhere. If we break this down on the hourly, I don't know if we can see it on the hourly, but we might have to go down to 15 minutes. It's going to look crazy, innit? So, we can see it, that kind of thing. As you can see, this was before the announcement. The announcement was at 12:45. The FT release saying that the the ECB hadn't changed anything, their interest rate and deposit facility. So before we had this big rally, and it came down, and then yeah, we had the actual release here, and it came back up because they did change it, but it wasn't as much as market expectations. So you know what I mean. Huge volatility. Look down here, bang down here, bang bang bang. But look at that rally, bang up there. This good bar, big solid bar. But yeah, quite an eventful day, afternoon even. And yeah, that pretty much covers the ECB. Yeah, and the FT just popping all over the place. So we're going to turn to America now, because we had a big day the next day as well. SPX 500. If you just look on the daily chart. Look on Thursday. What did we have? We had at 12:30 challenger job cuts. Although this may not move markets, because arguably a lot of people were focusing on the ECB, it's important to note, because it was a good indication for what was going to happen tomorrow. And the release for challenge job cuts showed that yeah, less jobs had been cut. There had only been 31,000 jobs cuts. The month before there was 50.5 thousand. Yeah, so that's better than expected. We also had ISM non-manufacturing, which was poor. The release came out at 55.9 versus expected 58, and arguably that helped push the SPX 500 lower. I said industries, I said manufacturing's people used to manufacturing poor. It should be that the service sector taking over. The ISM non-manufacturing index was released at 3 o'clock, which is this bar here. As you can see, it helped push it lower. It's probably running out of steam at this point. As you can see, after the ECB talk, it couldn't really make new lows. It's got dragged up, but then that just helped push it. It just kept falling. As you can see, that was quite big. And challenge job cuts were big because of the NFPs, which happened next day. So we're just going to look at them now. If you go on the daily, look at that. This is how big the NFP is. But it was interesting around the event, actually, interesting action, because we also at the same time had balance of trade, giving us two releases at the same time. 2 releases. Yeah, and actually for the first time in a while, US trade data was worse than expectations. The release showed American trade loss of minus $43.89 billion, compared to an expected minus $40.5 billion. Exports fell by 2.7 billion, outpacing the fall in imports, which fell 1.3 billion. The lowest balance of trade figure was in August, with a rate of 67.82 billion. So we're still about 24 billion off that low in August 2006. But it's not great. It missed expectations, and people who collect these, who develop these expectations, investors, they survey usually overpriced the effect of the dollar. But this was the first time that they hadn't really, and we saw worse than expected. We then had the NFPs and NFPs, which were released better than expected at 211 versus expected 200,000. That is. This was combined with an increase in the participation rate from 6.4% to 62.5%. So as you can see, good jobs there. But look at the time of the event. The event was 1:30, as you can see. We had a rally, but it came back down. Arguably, this is because the poor trade data and the poor NFPs, the good NFPs, sorry, they're quite good, were contradictory. So we couldn't really go anywhere. But then look what happened, we rallied afterwards. Why? Because arguably the Fed is paying more attention to the jobs than they are to the dollar or to trade. That's really what they've kind of positioned themselves, where they're focused, not solely, but always predominantly, on the jobs data. They really like jobs. And arguably, now that the rate hike for December is pretty much priced into market, it's about 80% chance happening. Rate highs would be bullish, because people know that cheap money is going to end. soonish. They've repositioned themselves pretty much. Well, most people have, and yeah. So a rate rise is good because it shows the Fed are bullish on the economy. So yeah, good job there. We got a rise, as you can see. Yeah, so that pretty much sums it up for this week. So just take a look at the difference, how they end. So yeah, the miss by the ECB on Thursday, and a good jobs data for the S&P 500 outweighing the bad trade data on the Friday for the S&P 500 caused this. That was the cause. The S&P 500 fell less than UK 100 on the ECB release, causing the fall here, and then the S&P 500 rallied more than the UK 100 on the Friday, causing this big difference here. This was replicated in the JER, but even more so. The fall between the JER fell much more than the S&P 500 between Wednesday and Thursday. This is a big move from about 180 down to 0 difference. Then further, S&P 500 getting more from the NFPs than the JER 30. Yeah. Okay, that sums up this week really. So just look at next week now. And yeah, so this is Monday. This is what we got. This is our timetable for next week. Start off with UK house price index. Yeah, we've got the Eurogroup meeting, and on the agenda for this is basically terrorism and migration, two positive topics, but that's what they're going to be discussing. Then Britain will try and attempt to gain some attention about the potential BRIC exit. Britain's kind of, if you look at the way it acts, it's a bit like a spoiled child. It keeps demanding more and more controversial demands, so people pay attention to what they want. And then, yeah, the other nations are treating it like you would treat a spoiled child, which is just to ignore it. And I agree that's why France and Germany left them out when they went to negotiate with Ukraine. So Britain wasn't invited. They didn't want them to come, which is quite understandable, really. So yeah, England will try and draw attention to BRICS exit, but the main focus is going to be migration, terrorism. We've got Bullard speaking. He supports rate hike. We've got Chinese balance trade on the Tuesday morning. This is UTC. This is if you live in the UK, Europe. This is overnight. Important. China falling out the news could bring itself back in if this is bad or good. Be interesting to see. Yeah, manufacturing from UK, industrial production. We've got GDP growth rate for the European area. That's what EA is. Yeah, this is an interesting one because investors obviously were hit hard by the ECB missing its target, its expectations from the investors themselves. The interesting question is, will investors get their own back if the growth rate is not good? I.e., will they just come back and start shorting the indexes because they feel that the ECB should have done more? So if this misses expectations, we could see a sharp sell-off because yeah, investors getting their own back, and because it's poor, you know what I mean. Yeah, and then we move Tuesday afternoon. We've got NESA GDP expectations. These guys they model GDP, so they'll say what future GDP will look like. Yeah, we've got job openings for the US on Tuesday. Yeah, we've got China inflation rate on Wednesday, another big one. Mortgage applications, wholesale inventories, US BOE, MPC. This is probably the biggest, I reckon, and then this is the second biggest. So those two are quite important. And this is pretty big. It's hard to rank them, but 1, 2, 3. These are the biggest things. US exports and import prices. Good guide to inflation and how the dollar's doing. Dollar affecting the economy and everything. So that's all a good one. We also got initial jobless claims out. That's the US budget statement. German inflation, UK consumer inflation expectation, and US producer prices and retail sales at the end of Friday. That's meant to say Friday. This one's interesting because retail is very important to the US in the moment. It's really driving their growth. So yeah, make sure you watch that. Yeah, so that pretty much sums up this video.